Okay, so this week's parsha is one of those special Torah portions in that it is a double portion, and it is the last of the double portions of the Torah. Matos and Maasei. It's also almost invariably a double Torah portion. This year, even though it was not a leap year, we had multiple parshas that were not double portions. Just the way it sometimes comes out. I'm trying to study it in front of this light so it doesn't glare into the camera. I'll find the right angle to
Thank
do so.
you.
Anyways, so that the parsha, it's not always a guarantee that even in a non-leap year, that a Torah portion should be doubled over. But Matos and Maasei is one of those that is almost always. It's very rare that you'll have separately Parshas Matos and Parshas Maasei. We're also obviously smack in the middle of the period known as the 3 weeks, the period in which we bookended by the one national fast day to commemorate the breaking and the invading of the city of Jerusalem when the walls were breached. In the days of the Romans, and there's an opinion that also says in the day of the Babylonians. And then obviously Tisha B'Av, the day that is the anniversary of the destruction of both temples. And so this saddest day, saddest period in the calendar, bookmarked by two of the saddest days of book ended rather by the two very sad days on the Jewish calendar. Matos-Maasei, besides for it being nearly always a double Torah portion, also has a different distinction in which that it is Shabbat Chazak of the book of Bamidbar. With this, we come to the end of the book of Bamidbar, and in a certain way, the end of an entire section of the Torah. In that the final book of the Torah, which we will begin in the subsequent week, is the known as Mishnah Torah. It is a book in which Moshe acts as the primary narrator of it, and it is, as it were, a review, albeit obviously with a new insight, new guidance, and what have you. And it really is the Moshe's big, long speech at the last moment of his life, or the last moments of his life, spans 30 days, the entire book of Devarim. So Bamidbar really is the end of the journey, as it were. The Jewish people here are now on the cusp of entering into the land. They already see they're in the plains of Moab on the east bank of the Jordan River, looking at their final destination, and they are preparing to enter. And this is Moshe. Moshe will be sharing his long goodbye in the book of Devarim. So Bamidbar really is the end of the journey the Jewish people have been on in the past 2.5 Torah books of the Torah. Really, the journey that has and the whole story that has anchored the entirety of the Torah, for the most part, ends to a certain degree with this parsha, Parshas Matos and Maasei. And that's actually the second parsha. Maasei means the travels of the Jewish people. And Matos is a reference to the people that are traveling. Ela Roshei HaMatot. These are each one of the various ways to refer to tribes. In Hebrew, there's multiple synonyms, and it's interesting that they are not just synonyms for the word for a word that connotes a group, a distinct group within a larger whole, which is what the tribes are among the Jewish people. It's distinct tribes, part of the greater nation of the Jewish people. It might oftentimes otherwise be referred to as clans, right? The idea that you have a distinct group, but part of a bigger group. Both the words in Hebrew also are synonyms for a different thing, which is a staff.
Yeah.
Or a stick. a staff
Right.
of authority, a stick of authority, or a stick around which coalesces a scepter, a staff around which people coalesce. It's interesting that in America, the only tangible symbol of power, right? We don't have a throne and we don't have a crown, right? Because this is not a monarchy, right? So, but there
Right.
is actually one, and I'm sure most kids don't study this in school anymore because this would be, God forbid, to actually study the civics of our own country at in depth, and that's
You're
in
right.
in favor of some other oftentimes ludicrous subjects that are being taught in school. That's not taught, but it's an interesting point to note that there's only one actual physical, tangible symbol of American authority. Do you know what that is?
The eagle?
No,
Eagle?
the
Well,
eagle is an icon, but a
the
physical
judge,
object.
the judges, what you call it?
Not the judge's gavel, but that would be
Gavel.
again. But one that speaks to the American government, the judge, each judge has, in a sense, their own jurisdiction. They're the Speaker of the House,
Uncle Sam.
the mace. It's a
The
mace.
mace.
It's a mace. Go Google it. It's the mace of the Speaker of the House,
Okay.
um, and and it is an ornate staff-like object that the Speaker of the House can wield if necessary. Often, the only times it really generally does it is to bring decorum back to the chamber. If it goes totally bonkers, it's only being used very rarely. And when it is if the Speaker of the House raises the mace and anybody still speaks, they immediately get ejected from the chamber, no matter who they are, etc. So again, it's interesting that the one physical object, a symbol of American power, is also a staff. But the word shevet for shvatim, right? The word for tribe, the 12 shvatim, shevet means a staff. And the other terminology that we have in this week's parsha, matot, also means a mateh is right like the mateh of Moshe, the staff of Moshe. And I guess it's the idea that again that the reason why this is the term for a tribe is that this is the thing that everybody this is the object in the sense that this group of people coalesce around this banner, this staff of their particular tribe. So you have one parsha called Parshat Matot, which speaks to the Jewish people as in their tribal affiliation, and the other parsha Matot-Maasei Bnei Israel. These are the journeys of the Jewish people. Now, it is interesting that, as we said, with this closing to a certain degree, a book of the Torah, and in a very real sense, an entire I wouldn't say more than a section to a certain degree. Um, uh, the journey that the Torah has been taking us on is coming to its culmination. That these are the two parshas that we close with, Parshas Matos and Parshas Maasei. One of the things to note about Parshat Maasei is that we call that these are the journeys of the Jewish people through the desert. And then what does it go on to list? It says 42 what?
Levitical cities. No,
You heard it.
wait,
42. There you go. There's another reference to the 42. But the 42
right.
here are the 42 stations, stops along the way. We list every single one of them. Yisu mitavka v'yachanu ba'atzmona, v'yitu advonu v'yachanu b'yatvasa, and they go on in each one of the places. It says Gad v'yachanu betzion gaver, v'yisu mi'etzion gaver v'yachanu be'eres Yaakon, v'yisu mi'be'eres Yaakon, and goes, and they went, well, it means, and they traveled from here and they settled here, and they traveled from here and they settled here, and they traveled from here and they settled here, in each of the places. Are they in camp? Now, um, uh, doing this, You might say that it is a grammatically incorrect way to refer to this as these are the 42 journeys of the Jewish people. What is a more correct way of saying it?
The stops or
These are the 42 stops along the way.
right. The stops or the stations. Yeah.
Right. Ela Masa'e b'nei Israel is incorrect. There was one Masa, one long journey, and Elu, we can say, Elu HaChanuyot, right? Elu HaMachanot b'nei Israel.
Yep.
Right? These were the stops along the way.
Right,
The camps, the encamping along the way, as they were doing their one long journey, right, to the land of Canaan. So a couple of questions. Number one, how was there 42 journeys or was there one journey?
Yes.
Number two, yes. And number two, is it correct to refer to them as journeys? Well, we should really be referring to them as the stops, because the one we highlight each one of them, it's the stop that they took. And then question number three is always, what is the lesson to us? Right? Most of us don't plan on going on a roundabout journey from the land of Egypt, from Cairo, Egypt, into crossing the Jordan River with a long kind of roundabout detour through the Sinai Desert. If you are planning on that journey, pack a lot of water. And I also wish you much luck in that it shouldn't take you 40 years to complete it.
Can I say something? I think it was the philosopher Seneca. I'm not sure. I used to have this on my wall. It said, "Consider each day a separate life."
So we're going to get there. Yes. So the you and Paul are
Jumping
in
ahead.
the same. Yes. Rubbing off each other in a beautiful way. But let's.
I agree. It's beautiful.
100%.
100%.
So but to flesh out. So what is in a sense the lesson in this for all of us? So to start to back up a little bit, we've pointed out often that if the Torah is God's magnum opus, right? This is God's great instruction manual for life to all of us, is that the Torah is perfection. It is one of those rare circumstances where we were put it into where perfection was put into our hands, where we have an object. Now, obviously, of course, all of creation is God's perfect work, but ultimately, all of creation was created behind the shroud of nature, that God deliberately allowed for nature to play
Rabbi,
out.
I don't mean to complain, but your voice is like broken up, kind of.
Not much I can do about it. It's really just the computer.
Go. Okay.
Sunspots.
So I'll try to come a little bit closer to the microphone. But anyways, the point is that the Torah is different than all other creations from God, because all other creations of God, while of course they are perfect, in the sense that everything is created by God and is part of God's divine providence, but it's all hidden behind God's shroud of nature, in which God allows the world to, in a sense, play itself out without the clear divine intervention. To the point where if you want to see divine intervention, you have to be able to look deep in whatever it is. So in other words, not everything is blaring its perfection for all to see. Now, ultimately, again, if you're then able to look deeper or look more transcendental, you will see how everything is part of God's perfect symphony. But ultimately, it's not deliberately, not in a very revealed way. Rather, the world is functioning in a very worldly way. But there is one entity in this world that is, even as it exists in this world, remains that perfect divine perfection, and that is the Torah. So when we see anything in the Torah that it is in this way and not in a different way, you immediately should be asking yourself, why is perfection this way? Why is this the most perfect way? And if the Torah is there to instruct the Jews on how best to live a Jewish life, then it seemingly picked a very weird period in Jewish history to double down on and really focus on. The Jewish people are in the desert. They haven't even really come into their own as a nation. That will only happen once they settle the land and they build a Beit HaMikdash and they have a king, etc., etc. And that's not going to happen for hundreds of years hence. In the meantime, the period that they're in the desert, while on the one hand they do receive the Torah, but they can't even keep more than half of it. All the mitzvahs that rely on them living in the land, cultivating the land, bringing things up to the Beit HaMikdash, having a king, all those stuff cannot be applied, similar to, unfortunately, the state that we're in now. And also, besides for the mitzvot, the Jewish people don't even have a house. Every single one of them is living in a tent, in this weird kind of semi- or not even semi, entirely temporary state.
Yeah.
So it is a very, and interestingly enough, the Jewish people arrive at the cusp of going into the land and coming, and that moment of confluence between the people of Israel and the land of Israel. And finally, they are coming home, and the Torah stops right there. We don't even give. A lot of times, I'm sure all of you enjoy a good book, and a lot of times a book has a journey and whatever it is, and oftentimes the book might end right at the moment. But first of all, the book will always end with at least that moment of closure, right? They come through the door, the embrace, whatever. It may not go on after that because it's maybe not that dramatic, but then usually, at least first of all, you have at least that one word of closure, that one moment, that one scene of the door, of them arriving on the doorstep. The door opens and there's an embrace, and beautiful, all right, and then you can say they live happily ever after. Or what oftentimes happens is that you have an epilogue, right? You have at least some sort of, like, okay, for those that want a little bit of the reconciliation, the moment, the feel good, here it is. The Torah doesn't even give us that one moment of closure. And yeah, you could call the book of the prophets, etc., the epilogue. But the Torah is perfection in and of itself. So it is very strange where the entire Jewish story is them on the journey and never even getting to the destination. And yet, to a certain degree, that the point of that is what we are saying in the book of with the name of this parsha, Matot-Maasei. The Jewish people, even when they settle, and even when they encamp, are still on a journey. Unetaticha mahalchim bein ha'omdim. I have made you journeyers among those that are standing still.
Where's that?
That is a quote in scripture. I think it's Mishlei, but I could be wrong. I'll check and see if I can. But either way, the idea that the Jewish people are not meant to settle down is actually Zechariah. Apparently, it's Zechariah.
Okay.
And I have made you journeymen among those who stand here. And the ones he was referring to, the ones who are standing, are the angels. Angels, by very definition, means the servants and messengers of God. And yet even they are referred to as those that are standing still and static, while the Jewish people are considered journeymen, right? I've made this point often, that the world knows this intuitively, which is why the whole world recognizes that kind of that symbol of the Jews is that wandering Jew, right? A Jew on the move. Now, where they got it wrong is that we're not wandering, because wandering means that we don't have a destination, we don't have a purpose, and we are on the move because of circumstance. More importantly, no, we are the journeying Jew. We are the journeying Jew. We journey. The reason we journey is because Hashem put us in this world to not settle down, but rather push the world towards its final destination. And until that happens, we don't rest. And our story is not complete. And our mission here is not complete. And even as the Torah, if the Torah would have ended with the Jewish people entering into the land and the end, then to a certain degree, the message would have been that the Jewish people were journeyed up until they came to the land of Israel, and the way the land of Israel was at the time that they went in, and that's it, and the end. And now, to a certain degree, we should try to recapture that state of existence where we can get the house with the picket fence in a nice neighborhood in Jerusalem or wherever else it is, and settle down. No. The point of the story is that we are not at the end, ultimately. Even still, even after we went into the land then, even after we settled the land, even after we had kings, the Jewish people were still on that same journey. They were still studying the same Torah with the same journey. And that journey doesn't end until Mashiach comes. And until Mashiach comes, and it says, Torah Chadasha Me'iti Teitze. So when Mashiach comes, a new chapter of the Torah will be written. But until that happens, the Torah's message to all of us is, you're on a journey. You're on a journey. Matot-Maasei b'nei Israel. These are the journeys of the Jewish people. We're going to talk about that, the plural, in a minute. But even when we rest, and even when we stop along the way, in 42 different stops, and now I think that we can say that it's about 4,200 or 42,000 different stops along the way, that those stops are also part of the journey. Every single place a Jewish person ends up, they're not there to settle down and to bring their journey to a close. They are there as part of their journey. This has many ramifications in what we prioritize as Jews. By the way, we're not the only people that do this, right? That have this attitude that we're on a constant journey. We never settle down, right? The Bedouins, by definition, that's what they do, right? Okay. Bedouins or the Roma or other such people, they are a people constantly on the move, etc., etc. Now we're different. It's interesting that that for a people that's on a journey, we definitely like settling, right? Jackie Mason says his favorite joke. He says, a Jew on vacation. He says, you know what? Where the favorite part of a Jew on vacation is? The hotel lobby. A nice couch. Give me a couch, a good couch. That's where I can sit. Show me where I can sit down. Etc. Tongue in cheek. But the thing is, we're not like the Bedouins, because ultimately we understand that the stops are also part of the journey.
Rabbi, there's a couple on YouTube, a Chabad couple, and they don't live anywhere. They just travel everywhere. Have you ever seen them? They're amazing.
Yes.
They're lovely. They're related to the Marcuses here in Mashivia. They're just, and they're having kids. They're having kids. They have the kids, and they keep moving. They're moving.
Yeah,
but that's their view of life. Yeah.
Right. But ultimately,
I think that there are journeys and there are journeys.
No, and that's exactly what we're saying. Our journey doesn't necessarily have to mean a physical one where we're racking up the miles. The Jewish people stayed for 19 years. Did you know this? Of the 40 years they were in the desert, 19 of them were in one location.
No, I didn't know that.
In Kadesh. So ultimately, take into consideration the fact that before God even sentenced them to the 40 years in desert, they had already been there for about a year or so with by the Har Sinai, et cetera, et cetera. So nearly half, if not maybe even a little bit more than half, they were stationary in one location.
Where's Kadesh?
Kadesh is toward the north of the Sinai desert peninsula, closer to the Mediterranean, the bottom of the Mediterranean.
So it's not in modern Israel.
No. This is a part of their journey through the desert.
Yeah.
But the point is that it wasn't so much, again, if you're racking up the physical miles, it's even if you are settled in a place, you consider yourself on a journey. And that's the point. You don't have to be a Bedouin, and you don't have to be a Roma, and you don't have to be that Jewish family. In fact, I recommend you don't be that Jewish family. If you can have a whole bunch of kids, settle down, give your kids some stability. If it's good for them, it's good for them, but I don't recommend it. Ultimately, and most importantly, you have to understand that when you're in a place, it's not so you can settle, but it is so that you can grab this place and move it along on its journey as well. To keep everything moving. So you actually should settle in a place and become integrated into that place so that you can grab it and move it along. The Jewish people, it says, why did they go into all these various exiles, end up in every corner of the world? It says because there are things wherever there's the world that needs to be captured and brought over to holiness. The Takin Olam b'Malchut Shaddai. Right? So all these steps along the way, they're not stops, they're parts of the journey. And it doesn't mean that you don't settle, you do settle. In fact, it's interesting that another message in this parsha is that if the Jewish people were in a place for a long time, they would set up and erect a Mishkan and set up the camps, build everything. The Mishkan, it doesn't take 2.5 minutes to set up. It's a remarkable engineering design, if nothing else. They built this massive, over 2-story structure out of wood and gold, et cetera, with curtains, et cetera, and it was eminently movable. God designed a pretty remarkable building. You see, God wasn't as an architect. You should see his other works that God designs, including the entire world. But also, when he gets down to designing a building, he also does a pretty good a mobile building. It's a pretty remarkable moldable building. Having said that, it obviously doesn't go up in 2 minutes. It takes a while to raise. So when they settled into an area, when they were going to be there for a while, they went through the process of setting up all the camps. Exactly where they were supposed to be laid out, right, in the 4 directions with 3 tribes per each direction, setting up the tent and setting up everything, and then putting the Mishkan in the middle and erecting the whole Mishkan and sticking everything in. And that's what they would do when they would settle for a long time. Do you know what they would do if they were settled for one day? The exact same thing.
I was going to guess.
They would set up the whole camps, everybody in their place, erect the whole Mishkan, even if they were going to be taking it down in a matter of hours. Because when they stopped in an area, it wasn't just a result of circumstance or whatever. They needed to be there, and you need to be there with the entirety of your being. Put everything there because this place needs you in this moment, and you have a mission here in this moment. The difference is that if you are the person looking to settle or the person looking to journey, is what ends up becoming a priority. And how do you view yourself in that particular space? And we look at ourselves as Mahalchim, as journeyers. Avram Avinu settled into a particular area, and in that area did not only live there for a long time, but he became the authority in that area. The kings came to him for guidance and direction and for permission. He became a king over kings in the land of Canaan where he settled. Yet, what did he call himself?
A nomad.
Ivri, right? What does Ivri mean? Doesn't mean Hebrew.
The other side.
What does it mean? It means from the other side of the river.
Over.
I am a traveler. This is not my place, as it were. Because even as he settled, he wasn't settling. He was moving over. He was moving. This is not my destination. I am moving along here. And I'm here because this place also needs to move along. And my influence, or whatever it is, and I will stay here as long as it takes for my influence to achieve what I need to achieve in this place, because priority number one is when I arrive at a place, I arrive at a place with purpose. The purpose is not to arrive at the place. Do you understand? Most people, their purpose is to arrive at their place. Let me find a good neighborhood, good schools, good houses, decent HOA, nice infrastructure, picket fence, what have you. My purpose is to arrive at the place. And in Yiddishkeit, you arrive at the place for a purpose. So that even the stops become part of the journey. Yes, Paula.
I look at it all a little bit differently, unless I'm not understanding what you're saying, which is very possible. I think my life, I think a lot of people's lives have two journeys. One is the spiritual journey, and one is the physical journey. A lot of my friends from Kent Mill Synagogue ask me, why don't you move to Kent Mill? It would make your life so much easier. And my answer is, I think I've only got one move left in me. And if it's not going to be to Israel, it's going to be to a nursing home. This is not a joke. Okay. This is the truth. The two journeys are not separate from one another. They intertwine. And so my spiritual journey is being realized here in this physical stop along the way to Eretz Yisrael. And my goals for making Eretz Yisrael a reality, learning Hebrew a little bit better, etc., 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 all those things, brings me closer to Hashem. So they're two separate journeys, but they're not separate.
Oh, well, I agree. They're not separate at all. They're not two separate journeys at all. They're all part of one thing, and I don't understand where we're disagreeing.
I don't either.
I think I didn't understand what you were saying exactly, and that's if we were saying the same thing, wonderful.
More importantly, when somebody looks at themselves in the mirror and they're living a nice, comfortable life in wherever it is that they're living, they don't feel like they're disenfranchised or whatever it is. They're here. They're pillars in the community and what have you, and they're the kids have made friends and they've put down. When the question is, when they look in the mirror as a Jew, what do they see in the mirror? Do they see somebody who has arrived at their destination, or somebody on the march? It doesn't have to be that, and not necessarily that they're planning on picking themselves up and physically moving anytime in the next 10, 20 years. Obviously, with Mashiach any moment, but that actually gets to the point of it. Ultimately, as we said, even if you're settled for a day, you're in this place. Why? Because if you arrived in this place is part of your mission, and you will be here, and you'll be fully integrated here for as long as the mission has you here, because this is part of your journey. And the stops are also part of the journey. And the journey doesn't mean, as we said, that you have to be nomadic or mobile. The point of the journey is when you're looking in the mirror, you're asking yourself, why am I here? Am I here because I want to settle down and just take life easy? Or am I here because I'm supposed to achieve something here? Which means that even as I'm here, I'm on a journey. I'm on a mission. Matot-Maasei b'nei Yisrael. The way we will define what the Jewish people did throughout the desert and what the Jewish people have done throughout history is not a series of stops, it's a series of journeys. Because even as they stopped,
you broke up.
Journeys. Even as they come to an area and they can settle into an area for a very long time, they are still on a they're still moving. They're still moving towards something. They're bringing that place towards something. There's progress. Progress. Right? That is why every Jew is a progressive. Just maybe not in the way that the politics means. Right? We should all be progressive. We should all be looking to add to ourselves, to our place. And again, sometimes it means a physical location, sometimes it means our own station in life. But at no point do we have the idea that, okay, I am done. In Yiddishkeit, there is no such thing. Every day has to be a
There's
day
no such
where
thing
you are
as
journeying.
stuck either.
You are
There's
correct.
no stuck and there's no done.
Well, oftentimes there is where you can feel stuck, but you can't accept it. You have to push
Right.
past. You have to push, and ultimately, whenever you find yourself wherever you are, there's something to achieve there. Whatever state you're in, there's something to achieve there, and that goes to the plurality of the expression. It doesn't say Ela Masa b'nei Israel, Ela Masa'ei b'nei Israel, because each station, each stop, each thing, in a sense, is its own unique journey, adding to the overall thing. And we can't look past when you arrive again. When you arrive in a specific place, you can't be looking past that place as to the next thing. No, this step is an integral part. This journey is necessary to walk on. You need to walk this journey through. There was a story where the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, indicated to the Chassidim that he was going to say a Chassidic discourse, and so there's traditionally the nigun, the song, the Chassidic tune that is sung to put everybody into the right frame of mind to hear the Hasidic discourse. And so they started singing it, but they were very excited to hear the mimer. They were very excited to hear. So the nigun takes itself about 3 minutes or so to sing through. So they put it on 1.25 speed, right? They kind of they just like hit a little bit faster. Let's see if we can shave a minute off it or what have you. So they kind of rushed their way through the nigun to get to the maimah already. The Rebbe Rashab stopped them and says, "Start again, because if we're doing this nigun is necessary, and if it's necessary, it's supposed to be done right." And so start the nigun again and sing like and do this preparatory part of the journey is its own journey. And so ultimately,
this is such a modern message about how everyone's always telling you to live in the now and live your present, but it's so true.
But it's, like, I'm the kind of person it's more important. The moment is not served up to make you feel good or to give you an experience, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, go live in the moment, because otherwise you're not indulging.
God wants you to do something in that moment, so pay attention.
But it even goes further, I think. If you screw up, the screw up is part of the journey.
Correct. And the obstacles that you surmount, or if you think you don't surmount, failures, etc., are all part of the journey. Now, that's all part of God's perfect choreography. For us, obviously, we shouldn't say, okay, let me just, I can screw up and I'll make peace with it because it's all part of the journey. No, regret it and resolve to do better and do your utmost best to not screw up, because we are on a journey, right? And ultimately, we're on a journey to learn how to ride a bike, as it were. And so the falling off of the bike and scraping your knees is all part of the process. But I think everybody has the goal in mind to fall off as least as possible and scrape the least amount of knees as possible, and to get onto the bike and be able to move to the next step of the journey after this step has been thoroughly, properly succeeded in. But I think this is the point, that when you live life in this way, where you're on a journey, as I said, the attitude to the way you live life is different. Priorities become different. Right? The famous story attributed to many a great sage, some say the Chafetz Chaim, some say others, but that a very well-heeled Jewish person, but not a particularly arrogant or a miserly individual, a big Baal Tzedakah, whatever it is, made the far journey to come to see the Chafetz Chaim in where he lived, and this was the illustrious Rabbi Saul Meir Kagan, has changed really forever the landscape of Judaism with his brilliance and his solicitude and his righteousness. And he was coming to visit him, and he was coming to the home of this illustrious rabbi, and he was shocked to see that it was the most decrepit house in the town. This is the great Rav, the Chafetz Chaim himself. He's living in an absolute hovel. And he comes to the door, and the Chafetz Chaim opens the door, and he takes him in, and he says, "There's no furniture. The chairs are a whole bunch of crates, and the table is a larger crate with a piece of wood on top of it, and the bed is 4 or 5 crates lined up with a mat of straw." And this man, he was incensed. And he turned to the Chafetz Chaim and he says, "Rav, where's your furniture?" So the Chafetz Chaim did what every good Jew does, and he answered the question mit a question. And he turned to him and he says, "And where's your furniture?" So the guy says, "I don't have furniture. It's just I'm traveling. I'm just passing through."
No.
And the
Me
Chafetz Chaim said, "So am I."
Yeah. That's the message of the Sukkah.
Yeah. And that's the message. And Sukkah, the whole point of Sukkot is the message of this is the way the Jewish people were in the desert, which makes the point that this is the way the Jewish people are, period. That we are passing through. Now, it doesn't mean go out and throw out all your furniture. It means, though, what are your priorities? What is the Chafetz Chaim telling him? When I'm here in this world, my goal is not to get the nicest, most comfortable furniture so that I can be comfortable in this station. I am passing through. What I want to collect is those items that help facilitate my journeying, not my settling. Whatever the Chaim says, whatever is gets me to succeed in this journey, just like you. He was pointing out to this person, what is a priority for you? A good horse, a well-oiled chariot, money to be able to maneuver through the checkpoints and what have you, food for the way. These things to facilitate your priorities are, you're not going to put a big heavy couch in your chariot, in your wagon, because while it may be more comfortable, it burdens the journey. So since the Chafetz Chaim, same attitude. I have what I need to make my journey expeditious. And by expeditious, I don't mean fast. I mean expeditious as in the most successful that it can be in this moment. And so each and every one of us, in terms of what are we prioritizing, what is our attitude, what is our approach to the life that we lead, should be, again, nobody is expecting absolute perfection in this effort with zero call it wiggle room, call it with allowances. Go ahead, buy yourself a nice furniture, a nice house, be comfortable, etc. But a Jew has to be able to look at themselves in the mirror and see a journeyer. A journeyer. And as I said, the purpose is not to arrive in a place, but rather to arrive in a place with a purpose. And that is Matot-Maasei, and on that we say chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. And that is ultimately why the Torah ends with us still on the journey. Because the Torah is saying until Mashiach comes, you are still on the journey. And when Mashiach comes, then we'll write the next chapter to the Torah. But even as the Jewish people were in Israel, they were still then on their journey. When they built their first Beit HaMikdash and a second Beit HaMikdash, both of those Batei Mikdash ultimately it says, halachically, you're not allowed to destroy a shul. You're not allowed to destroy a shul. And it says that Hashem keeps the whole Torah. Magid varav liYaakov chukav mishpatav, that the commands that he himself keeps is what he commanded the people. His own chukim, the own statutes, his own laws that he applies to himself is what he was Magid liYaakov. And so, as a general rule, throughout the Talmud, we ask, how does God fulfill this mitzvah or that mitzvah, whatever it is, and there's always has to be a ready answer to it. So there's a halacha that says you're not allowed to destroy a shul. God, you destroyed two of them. And not just a shul, the shul. What right did you have to destroy a Beit HaMikdash? It's a violation of halacha. What's the answer? The answer is that there is one case you're allowed to dismantle and take down a shul. Anybody want to guess?
To build something better?
To build well, there's nothing better than a shul, but to build a bigger and more elaborate shul, you're allowed to take down a shul to build a better one in its place.
So that's our mission.
Why it says, Gadol yeh kvod habayit hazeh ha'acharon yoter min harishon. Quote, for this exact reason, says that God says that the honor that will come from this latter Beit HaMikdash will be greater than the former. And say that either that's a reference to the second temple, which was larger both in size and in years than the first one, or it's speaking about the third Beit HaMikdash, which will be greater than the previous two. But the point is that even as the first Beit HaMikdash was built and the second Beit HaMikdash was built, there was an understanding that these were not yet the destination. Both of these will be dismantled in the favor of the building of the third Beit HaMikdash. So this journey is not over, even when we're in the land of Israel. And as I said, oftentimes, the story of where I killed the moment for our tour guide when we did this trip to the Solidarity trip recently to Israel, and we had an opportunity to actually have the Shabbat meal right there on the Kotel Plaza in one of the buildings where Aish has its building, and we're looking. It was magnificent and it was beautiful, and we're all sitting there and admiring this view like none of us have ever seen, and we're about to have our Shabbos meal, and the tour guide, a religious Jew, an ardent Zionist, turns to us and says, stand a moment and appreciate that for thousands of years the Jewish people have yearned to do exactly what you're doing now, to be where you are right now, to be able to be in the holy city, in Jerusalem, sitting down to a Shabbat meal with such a beautiful view of the Western Wall, etc. And everybody was taking it in and was nodding their heads. But I'm a Chabadnik. So I said, you'll forgive me, but with all due respect, for thousands of years, the Jewish people were not yearning to be where we're at. We join the Jews for thousands of years that are yearning to be in Jerusalem with a Beit HaMikdash on the other side of that wall. The journey is not over. We may be closer than we've ever been, but the whole reason we're here is because to solidarity for a terrible, heinous act against the Jewish people, the worst since the Holocaust. Now, of course, it's in a different context in the fact that we do have the Holy Land and we are able to be in Jerusalem, but that's a ruins on the Temple Mount.
That's right. So, the wall is a ruin.
Correct. And so ultimately, the journey is not over. And even as we settle into the Holy Land, and even those in the Holy Land, when they finish their Seder, still say, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. Because this is our mission until the time where the Beit HaMikdash is built, Melech HaMashiach is our king, and all the Jewish people are in the Holy Land, and the world is at peace in the way that it promises L'takein olam b'malchut Shaddai. Until then, no matter where we are, and no matter how comfortable the physical surroundings that we're in, what have you, and America is an unbelievable country, a Malchut Shel Chesed, etc. And the Jewish people, honestly, as much as we are feeling lately strife and what have you, the Jewish people have never had it better, etc. And all that does not detract even for one moment, and for one iota, shouldn't our sense that we are definitely still on the journey. And wherever we are in our own personal lives, that sense that there is much, much, much to be accomplished within myself. And I need to wake up every morning on that. You see, the thing is, when you're on a journey, every morning you wake up with that slight pressure, right? That's like right over here. That says, today I need to accomplish something different than you would have if you're truly just settled and relaxed, kind of at your destination. We have to feel that metach, as it says in Hebrew, that energy, that pressurized energy to keep us moving. To ask yourself at the end of the day, as you put your pillow down at the end of the day, so have I moved the journey forward, even infinitesimally? Have I grown myself? Because you're a part of your journey. You are your most important part of the journey. Have you made forward progress? Have I helped others make forward progress? Can I point at something today? And we should all be able to do that as we put our pillows down on the bed at night. What can I say? What can I identify as a definitive step forward? Sometimes it could be that I learned my lesson from a mistake I made. Sometimes it could be that I taught one person one idea of Judaism. I shared one Torah thought with somebody. So that Torah thought had not been shared in this circumstance or in this situation. There's all the expression that a particular place in this world, a particular place in the world could just be waiting for somebody to make one bracha in that spot. Maybe that's all it's needed. So ultimately, the most important point is not necessarily to define exactly what the journey is for each and every one of us. And it could be many and varied, 42 different journeys the Jewish people went on. But it's the idea that we're journeying. And that mental awareness in each moment of your life, that when you look in the mirror, that's what you see. You see somebody journeying. And ultimately, may we be zoche, especially in the 3 weeks. This is the point where we feel most acutely that standing still and the status quo is untenable, is the parsha where we hammer this point home. Correct. But, as Paula said, sometimes the mistakes and sometimes the difficult moments are specifically part of the journey. And there had to be a destruction of the second temple and the whole process that followed it in order for us to prime the building of the third one, which is all fine as long as we arrive there and we build it. Yes.
There are different opinions about the third temple. I'm not sure where Chabad comes down on this, whether this can only happen with the coming of Mashiach, or it can happen at any time in this regular world.
The answer is it's going to happen in this regular world with Mashiach, because Mashiach will be part of this regular world. Is it the task of Mashiach? Yes, it is. As the Rambam clearly says, that the role will be a Mashiach. Ubana Beit HaMikdash Bimkomo. It says that Mashiach will be the one to lead the project. This will be the role of just like the Beit HaMikdash cannot be built until David HaMelech and then Shlomo HaMelech. The mandate. The mandate will be Mashiach's. As again, this is clear in the Rambam in the most comprehensive location in Judaism that talks about Mashiach and the days and the end times, as it were, the end of the days. This is something very clearly, definitively, the role of Mashiach to build. So, what, for example, is happening in Mechon Hamikdash, right? The Temple Institute, as I said. Mashiach is one who will have to build it. It doesn't mean that we can't have the vessels all ready to go. So they've actually built the vessels of the Beit HaMikdash. There's not just models. As far as they're concerned, they're building the vessels that will be used. in the Beit HaMikdash. This is a very laudable thing, and not necessarily something that we're in disagreement with. That's all part of literally living with Mashiach as a tangible reality. But ultimately, may we merit what will happen. This is our future. This is our reality. The coming of Mashiach is our destination, not just for us, but for the whole world. And is the inevitable destination, because as God created the world, He created the world for a purpose. And as He said, that V'ruach Elokim merachefet al pnei hamayim, right? The very beginning, even before God said Vayihi Or, right? It says, and the Spirit of God was floating over the water. The Spirit of God, in other words, there was, of course, God is there, but the Spirit of God, which means, what was He thinking about? What was this driving spirit in this whole process of building the world, creating the world? As said, the commentary says, the Rucho Shel Melech HaMashiach. God had in mind the end game. You don't build a project without having a purpose and a goal for it. The goal is, so the inevitable destination of the world, the point B to creation's point A, is Mashiach. And until we get there, the GPS is still running. You have not arrived at your destination, right? And that's the point. And every Israeli taxi driver would love to take you all over the place as long as the meter is still running, right? So let's get to our destination with the coming Mashiach. And until we do so, understand that every day comes with that mandate to be a journeyer, to journey for your, to bring about forward progress for yourself, bring about forward progress for the world around you. All right, everybody?
Thank
Good
you,
Shabbos.
Rabbi.
And on that we say,
Amen.
Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek.
Thank you.
Bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.